Neutralizing your ego. The way to neutralize your ego is to love yourself unconditionally. Loving yourself doesn't bloat your ego. Loving yourself actually neutralizes your ego, because your ego isn't about loving yourself. We need to understand that life is consciousness. This means that what we assume to be true will become real for us. Whatever we're conscious of, we will experience. In essence, we will experience in life what we're deeply convinced is so. This statement is important. We experience in life what we're deeply convinced is so. If our thought patterns say, I cannot have this or that, I don't deserve this or that, I'm a bad person and so on, we continue to create conditions that correspond to our ideas of evil, lack and limitation. The bottom line is this. If we cannot accept ourselves, that we're worthy and deserving, then we cannot accept that other people are worthy and deserving, and will therefore be in judgment of them. The solution is to develop unconditional love of ourselves and others. This is the only way that we can ever be free. We must have total acceptance of ourselves first and then others, knowing that, as we are spiritually perfect, so is everyone else. You have created yourself in a very important way. You've created yourself, whether you realize it or not. All the character traits, mannerisms, ways of talking, ways of walking, facial expressions, gestures and even ways of thinking and believing, you have borrowed, imitated or made your own. It may have been from a parent or other family members, a favorite teacher, a friend, or a character in a book or a movie. Maybe you borrowed from someone you didn't even like. It may have been from someone who made you feel uncomfortable or afraid. Imitating that person could have been a way of making you feel less afraid, and a way of intimidating others. Never reject yourself in any way. It's important to take a look at the personality that you've created. Perhaps one of the reasons you keep yourself from doing this is because you've been an imitator. It's not uncommon to get hung up on this. It may help to understand that nobody can create a self from scratch. Everyone has to do the same thing. Everybody chooses from what's available. Even though you may have built your personality through imitation, you're not a fraud. No one else has ever put together the exact same combination that you have. Don't forget there are only 12 notes in the musical scale, and yet many hundreds of thousands of unique and beautiful combinations are created. It's all a matter of how they are put together. It doesn't make you any less of a unique person to have taken from others. The wonderful thing about this is that since you put it together from scratch, you can change it at any time you want to. You're never stuck. It's not a disaster to discover that you're not the person that you thought that you were. On the contrary, it's the beginning of the end of disaster. In order to change the experiences that are causing you pain and disharmony, it's necessary to begin with a clear understanding that you never help yourself by rejecting any part of yourself. We get into self-hatred because we set up a picture of how we think we should be based on the conditioning from our family, peer groups, mate, religion, and the society that we live in. The sad part of this is that we'll never be able to live up to the pictures, images, models, standards or concepts of how we think we should be. It's a psychological dead end. Freedom begins with self-acceptance. We've allowed our ego to trick us into believing that we're incompetent, inadequate, insecure, stupid, bad, evil and unworthy. All of this can be summed up as poor self-esteem and poor self-image. Until we make a conscious decision to change our thought patterns, we will continue to have poor self-esteem and poor self-image. The first and most important thing in your life is self-acceptance, to love who you are, to be yourself. Only when you love yourself can you begin to love others. Many people say you should forget about yourself and love others first. Well, it doesn't work that way. The truth is, you must first accept yourself with all your mistakes, all of your so-called sins, all the times you looked like a fool, and all the times you've acted inappropriately. You must be able to stand before the entire world and make no excuse for yourself. When you can do that, you're coming from a position of unconditional love. How you see yourself creates your behavior, and this behavior creates your environment or your results. When you attach your self-worth to your accomplishments, or to your behavior, you're setting yourself up for disappointment. No matter how hard you try, someone is going to think you're not okay. Remember this. You'll always be a failure in someone's eyes. You'll never win everyone over, sometimes not even a majority. Take a look at how much of your life is about winning approval, and realize this important truth. You'll never get the approval you seek. You simply can't please everyone, so learn to please yourself, and enjoy who you are. You can't fail as a person. It's worth repeating, that who you are is spiritually perfect, but what you do is not always perfect. What you do may succeed or fail, but you can detach yourself from the results by remembering that you can never be a success or a failure based on what you have and what you do. There's no way that you can fail in life as a person. You're not set up that way. When you're into hating yourself for all the things that you've done or haven't done, or into hating other people for what they haven't given you, you're into suffering. Suffering is a way of putting yourself down. It's a way of being angry with yourself. If you really get down to it, anger and suffering and lack of happiness in our lives comes from being disappointed in ourselves for not living up to some expectation that we have of ourselves, or that someone else has of us. In working with people who have self-destructive behaviors, I have found that the major cause of their behavior is self-hatred. Their self-hatred stemmed from the fact they hadn't lived up to someone else's expectations. Most of us judge ourselves on the basis of what we have or don't have, and what we've accomplished, or what we haven't. We feel that when we are a failure, we've let others and ourselves down. When we don't come up to the expectations of our parents, employers, religion, friends or mate, we conclude that we're no good. This is known as self-judgment. When you are standing in judgment of yourself, you will judge yourself as bad. And as soon as you put yourself down for something that you have or haven't done, or something that did not work out, or for a situation where you disappointed someone else, you feel bad. Yet this type of judgment only serves to carve away at what little self-esteem you have. It never does any good. It only destroys. It's true that each one of us has things in our lives that we regret, but at some point we have to stop dwelling on the regret and move on. We have to learn the lesson and throw away the experience. We can never be for anyone, as long as we are against ourselves. To be against others is to be against ourselves. This is a spiritual and psychological truth. The most corrupt thing that we can do is to judge someone. To suppress another individual and take away another's aliveness is one of the most negative and self-destructive behaviors a person can have. Release everyone, including yourself. What would happen if you had no regrets of the past? Try to imagine what would happen if you totally forgave everyone in your life regardless of what they did to you. Hopefully you are beginning to see that to the degree that you cannot forgive whether it be yourself or someone else you perpetuate unhappiness, poverty, sickness, lack and limitation in your life. Many people don't want to forgive others. They say things like, "Why should I let them off the hook after what they did to me?" The enemy is always someone we think can harm us or take something away from us, but the truth is no one can harm us. People harm us through ourselves. Actually, they don't harm us at all. We give them instructions on how to treat us, and they just follow through. Make a decision to give up all resentment right now, because in the end it will eventually destroy you. Yes, you say, I agree with you, but you don't know my circumstances. They really hurt me. Maybe I'll give up my resentment someday, but right now I can't let go. Understand that this mentality is more harmful and destructive to you than it is to the person that you resent. Turn your attention to this idea. You cannot be wealthy if you resent wealthy people. You cannot be successful if you resent successful people. You cannot be happy if you resent happy people. Whatever you resent is a statement of what you lack. This also applies to healing. You cannot be healed if you have resentment towards anyone, because resentment breaks down your immune system and literally causes your own sickness. Remember, whomever you resent is you, because we're all one. Rather than resent people who have what you don't have, or do what you cannot do, take the time to learn from these people. Let them become your teachers. Be with masters. Be with people who know how life works. Admire them, acknowledge them and support them in having what they have. And as you do that, you actually support yourself in having what you want. If you study philosophy and religion, you will see that the values, morals and principles they teach are often rooted in the belief that something is better than something else. A is always better than B. Don't get caught in that trap. Forget about what other individuals or groups believe is right for you. Instead, Realize you are connected to the same source of power, and that you know what is best for you. Pleasing others is a psychological dead end. About 700 years ago, a great teacher ripe with years and honors lay dying. His students and disciples asked if he was afraid to die.